All right, back once again with John Gallucci Jr., President, CEO of JAGPhysicalTherapy, certified athletic trainer and a physical therapist. John, every week there's another injury, another slew of injuries in the NFL. Let's start with some quarterbacks. Brock Purdy has been out with a shoulder injury. We thought he was going to play this past weekend. He didn't, but I wonder how hard it is for quarterbacks who sometimes take a lot of hits or have issues throwing the football with pain, deal with shoulder injuries.
Well, you've got to realize most people don't realize there's 4 joints in the shoulder, and if they're all not full range of motion with good strength, it's a little hard to be able to go over your head and whip a ball, or even some of the sidearm throwers. If you've got a contusion, you've got tendonitis, that stiffness, that pain just stops that projectile and the speed. And let's face it, the NFL is all about speed. If you can't get that ball out there and get it into your receiver's hand, it's a problem.
Yeah, isn't it better to take an extra week as opposed to rushing it?
Sometimes it's better, but listen, you know the game. It's 16, 17 weeks, and you've got to win those games, and you've got to fight to get in the playoffs, and the medical staffs collaborate with the players to see if they could perform. And sometimes it could be a game-time decision, walking out on the field, warming up, and if you're not feeling it, the last thing you want to do is put a player in the game.
Yeah, it's a good point. Now, a quarterback who also had a shoulder-ish injury was Gardner Minshew. He tore his, or he broke his collarbone, his clavicle. He's likely going to miss the season, but the rehab for that for a quarterback is what?
So the really easy thing about any type of collarbone fracture is they're just going to go in, they're going to pin it, plate it, and that's healed. The range of motion, the strength, the body mechanic, the rotation of throwing, even though it was his non-dominant arm, you still have that issue that a quarterback has to rotate, throw, pivot, be able to get that ball out. So ultimately, the issue is you're talking about he's 6 to 8 weeks before he's fully functional.
Yeah, so that's obviously into next season.
Yes.
Another position that had a shoulder issue is running back. David Montgomery for the Detroit Lions has a shoulder contusion. Now, to me, that's just pain. How much pain can you deal with? Now, they're lucky, and they held him out as a caution because they have Jahmyr Gibbs as also one of the great running backs in the league on that team. But how long do you suspect David Montgomery could be on the shelf with a shoulder injury?
You know, I think based on the contusion and the bleeding and the controlling of the inflammation, you could get him back within 7 to 10 days. The biggest thing that his training staff is doing is decreasing inflammation, working that range of motion. Once that motion is back pain-free, he's ready to go. So that should be something quick and easy to go. There's no tear, it's just a contusion. He should be ready to rock. But realize, contusions in any muscle, depending upon that bleeding and how large the bruise is, can lead to pain and stiffness. Their goal, get rid of that pain and stiffness, get him back on the field.
Now, a defensive lineman for the Philadelphia Eagles thought he had just a little bit of an elbow inflammation. We're talking about Brandon Graham, who had a little bit of a pinch, felt a little bit of pain, goes to the sideline. Turns out it was a torn tricep. Talk about the connectivity between that structure in your arm and the danger sometimes that comes from thinking, I'm okay, but it's really much bigger than that.
It's an awesome question, Teak. Ultimately, everybody has to understand when you're home and you go grab the milk and you extend, think about if you're a football player and you can't extend, you can't reach. That's your tricep extension. You got to be able to use your elbow flexion extension. And if people don't understand in a football player that you need to be able to extend, it's an issue. You can't pick up milk at home. You can't play football. So people have to put it that practical. You've got a torn muscle. The joint's not going to function correctly. If the joint's not functioning correctly, you can't play football.
What's that recovery like? First surgery, is there a surgery involved?
And if it's a full-blown tear, there's surgery involved. If it's a fibrous tear, they'll let it scar down and heal. They'll put them through about 4 to 6 weeks of therapy, get full range of motion, get strength. But if it's a full-blown tear, he's going to surgery. They have to reattach it and make sure there's full function. So it really depends on if it's a full tear versus a light tear.
So we're finished with the running back, and I feel so bad for this kid. J.K. Dobbins, who was previous with the Baltimore Ravens, has suffered another injury for the Los Angeles Chargers. 2 years ago, he had a knee injury, tore his ACL. Last year, he tore his Achilles. Last night in the Monday night game, he had an issue with his knee again. We don't know the full details, but I worry what it could portend for him. Guys who have repetitive and repeated injuries like that, what's the cause?
So it could be overtraining, could be over rehab. It could be, listen, collision. You're in a collision sport, so you're definitely going to have a problem. When you're looking at Achilles, you say, was there overtraining? Was there dehydration? Was there fatigue? When you're looking at knee injuries, you're looking at contusions. You're looking at simple things of rotation. We know the turf discussions over the years in the NFL, so you don't know. He has been very unlucky, though. 3 for 3. 3 years in a row, he's got injuries. Let's hope this diagnosis is not one that's going to put him out for a long time. But he's definitely been very unlucky.
Is there a better way to train after you've had a major injury like that so that you don't do the things that you just said, overtrain?
I think our biggest thing that we see with any rehab process is everybody is focused on just the injured joint, and they don't rehab the entire athlete. Now, the NFL's got some of the best skilled sports medicine professionals out there, so they're working the whole body, but you got to make sure the athlete understands, the coaches understand, is the athlete ready to go? Is the athlete fully functional, multi-directional? And is the athlete ready to participate? And the staffs get it, but sometimes the coaches try to push it a little bit. But at the end of the day, you've got to be full body ready to play a football game. It can't just be rehab my knee or rehab my Achilles. You've got to have the whole body ready to go.
Yeah, sometimes that's also on the player because the player will push themselves.
Correct.
John, appreciate you. As always, John Gallucci Jr., President and CEO of JAG Physical Therapy.